Hello again, this is Dr. Kingston, and in this video, we'll be talking about the spinal cord. In this video, we're going to describe the major regions of the spinal cord and spinal gray matter, and we will talk about the types of neurons housed in each region. The spinal cord is an extension of the central nervous system down into the trunk. It is contiguous with the brain at the foramen magnum, and then it travels inferiorly through the vertebral canal. Now, despite the fact that there are 33 vertebrae making up this vertebral canal, the spinal cord itself actually ends between vertebrae L1 and L2, which is right about here on the image. Okay, so you can see it ceases to be a solid structure right here, but you still have all of these little spinal nerves coming down to exit at appropriate vertebral levels. All right, there are 33 of these spinal nerves in total, and you are going to be responsible for just 8 of them. Those are the 8 cervical spinal nerves. So these are numbered from superior to inferior, with C1 coming out between the cranium and the first cervical vertebra, and C8 exiting out here between the 7th cervical vertebra and the first thoracic vertebra. All right, most of these cervical spinal nerves innervate regions of the head and neck that the cranial nerves don't reach, but many of them also are going to contribute to innervation of the upper limb. And speaking of the upper limb, the spinal cord is not consistent in its diameter. So it gets bigger, kind of looks like it swells up actually, in places where more neurons are housed. And the regions of the spinal cord that house neurons for the limbs definitely need a bit more area to fit all the neurons that innervate the muscles and skin. Okay, and especially more than just this middle region here, right? All right, so we have 2 big expansions in the spinal cord right around where the innervation for your limbs begins. So we have one here in the cervical region between C5 and T1. And we see another one lower here in the spinal cord for the lower limb. The spinal cord is arranged with its gray matter tucked away on the inside where it makes this kind of H shape here. Now, gray matter, remember, is composed of neuron cell bodies or soma. So each of these horns coming off the gray matter are homes for neuron cell bodies. The white matter then surrounds the gray matter and it fills in all the little gaps to give it a relatively circular diameter here. White matter, remember, is made up of axons, which link the neuron cell bodies up with the next step in their chain. So the fibers making up the different portions of the white matter here might be axons communicating between the spinal cord and the brain, or different spinal levels, or between the spinal cord and the spinal nerves. We're not going to get into too much detail about what's doing what, but those are all possibilities here. The arrangement of the gray matter into these 4 horns isn't just for aesthetic purposes. Each horn houses a specific type of neuron cell body. So the ventral horns, which I highlighted in red there for you, those are motor nuclei. All of the somatic motor neurons that travel out to the periphery on the spinal nerves start off with their cell body right there in that red. Okay, and there's one for the right side of the body, one for the left. The dorsal horns then are sensory nuclei, and those are where the axons of sensory neurons coming in from the periphery will synapse. So it's important to note that the sensory neurons whose cell bodies live here are not the same whose axons travel out on the spinal nerves. So those neurons have a separate home that we will discuss in with the spinal nerves, but put a little pin here and come back to answer this question once you've viewed that material. And this is a relatively short module, so we've reached the end. Here is your review question. What level does the spinal cord end at? And that is, of course, B. It ends between vertebral levels L1 and L2. All right, that is everything. Thank you for joining me.